Today I'll explain you about list control in Java AWT using Visual Studio Code environment. So here you can see an image of the list control. You can see some items available inside this, and you have a scroll bar also. And you can select an item, or multiple items can also be selected. And the items, whatever you're seeing, is called as a viewable area. If you have more than that, you can use a scroll bar. Now how to create this, we'll see. We have a list class in order to create a list control. So the list class provides a compact multiple choice scrolling selection list. So just now I was showing the image. You do have a particular area where you can see some options and you can go for multiple selection. And if more than the viewable area, the items are existing, you can go for a scroll bar. So list class is used to create a particular control. A list object can be constructed to show any number of choices in the visible window. So in the previous image, I was showing 5 items. So that is a viewable area, or which is called a visible window. And apart from that, you might have so many options where you can use a scroll bar and just check out the other elements. It can also be created to allow multiple selections. So more than one element can be selected. Now we do have constructors of this class. So we have a default constructor creates a list control that allows only one item to be selected at any one time. So here when you go for the list where no argument has been passed, then only one item has been selected from the particular list. Now list with int number of rows. Now the value of number of rows specifies the number of entries in the list that will be always be visible. So what is a visible window area? Maybe 4 or 5. If you have 10 elements, still you are writing 4 or 5, only 4 or 5 are visible. Others can be scrolled into view as needed. Now list with number of rows and boolean multiple select. Now if multiple select is true, now if it is true, this one you are writing true, then the user may select 2 or more items at a time. If it is false, then only one item may be selected. So whenever you want to go for multiple selection, the third type of constructor you need to use, and other two constructors you are going to work with only a single selection. And here if you write false, then also we go for single selection. So you need to try true when you want to select more than one item from the list. So these are the three constructors available for list class to create a list control. Now what sort of methods are available for list class? So we have an add method where you can give the name of the item what you want to add the list, and when you give the name of the list for this particular first method, it will add only to the end of the list. But sometimes I want to add a particular string or an item in between, so you specify the index number where you want to add, and already existing element in the particular index where you are adding will be moving one step forward, and this new value will be inserted into there. It is not going to overwrite. So both add methods are used to add a selection to the list. Now here we have get selected item and get selected index. Now when you talk about get selected item, it is going to return a string. So in the list box, we have some items and you just select any of the particular item. Then this is only applicable for one item selection. So that string will be returned whatever you have been selected. If you apply get selected index, so what item you have been selecting, that index number will be returned as an integer for you. So both methods can determine which item is currently selected. These methods work for the list that allow only one single selection. You can see there is no arrays here, okay, to store multiple items. So whenever you go for single selection, these methods can work. Now if you go for selecting more than one item, then we can go for get selected items method. Now you can see the square brackets where it is an array. Suppose among 6 elements you are selecting 3 elements, the 3 items whatever you are selected will be stored here. Similarly, if you want to get the indexes of the selected items, you can apply this one and the index numbers are going to store. So for lists that allow multiple selection, you must use the above two methods. So these two methods are working for multiple selection. Now here we have a method called get item count, which returns an integer. This method is used to obtain the number of items in the list. Suppose you want to find out how many number of items are there or options are there in the list, then you can apply this method. Now if you want to go for select any of the item by default, so you can write a method called select method, and you give the index number which you want to select by default. Sets the currently selected item with a 0 based integer index. So since index is starting from 0, you need to just check out how many elements are there. Based on that, the index number you need to write in this select method. Then that particular item will be selected by default when you execute your application. Now here I want to get the item based on the index number. So I give the index number here, that item string will be returned. So given an index, you can obtain the name associated with the item at that index. Suppose on XYZ is in the index number 2. So if you give here 2 in this method, you get here XYZ. So these are few methods for the list class. Now coming to the events of the list class. Now each time a list item is double clicked, whenever you double click an item, an action event is generated. Now to process list events, you will need to implement an interface called action listener. So for action event, which is a class, there is an appropriate listener called action listener interface. Now in this action listener, we have an action perform method. We need to implement that. Now there is one method called get action command method, can be used to retrieve the name of the newly selected item. So whatever the item you are selecting in the list box, if you want to retrieve that particular item name in your application, when you go for event handling, then I can apply get action command so that whatever the item you're selecting, that name will be extracted. Also, each time an item is selected or deselected with a single click. So earlier it was double click, we are going for action event. When you go for single click, item event is generated. Now its get state change method can be used to determine whether a selection or deselection triggered this event or not. So once you click an item in the list box, item event is generated. Once you deselect also, item event is generated. So for item event, there is an item listener interface to be notified, and inside that item state change method is there that you need to implement. Now get item selectable method returns a reference to the object that triggered this event. So which item you have been selected, that reference you want, so that you need to cross verify that whether that particular item was selected or not, and that is going to generate the event. I'll show you the demonstration of how to create a list control in Java AWT using VS Code environment. So we need to open the Visual Studio Code. So this is an application for the Visual Studio Code where I'm creating a list box with items, and I'm also including the event handling concept. So here we are going for 3 packages again. The first package, java.awt, we are going for, there is a class called list class. For that we are going, and for event handling like action event, action listener, item event, item listeners, those are available in java.awt.event. And when you go for applet lifecycle methods, we have an applet class which is available in java.applet. So these are 3 packages we are importing, and here the class name is user defined, that is a list demo, which is extending a predefined class called applet for lifecycle methods, and it need to implement an action listener. So whenever you double click an item in the list, then the action event is generated. So we are going for action listener implementation. So here there is a list class, this one, and for the 2 reference variable we are creating, one is for the operating system OS, one is for the web browser we are creating, then one empty message we are creating, then we are creating font class reference variable because I want to increase the size of the font to make the particular text visible properly. Then we are going for the first lifecycle method called init method of an applet. Then we are creating the reference variable, we are converting to the object of list class. So we have already created OS here. I take OS, initialize with new list, and the number of rows you can see 4. That means if you have 10 elements also, only 4 are visible at a time, and the other 6 elements you can go for a scroll bar usage and scroll the elements. So scroll bars will be automatically appended, and here you can see multi-mode is true. That means multiple selection is possible for operating system. Similarly, for browser reference variable, I'm converting it to an object by using new list. Here also I'm trying to put 4 as a minimum visible window size, and here multi-mode is false. That means for the browser we can only go for single selection. Because I put here false, so only browser going for only single selection, but whereas operating system object, that is a list box, holds for multiple selection. Then here I'm creating an object of font class, what I was taken here F, and I'm making it as an Arial as a font family. Then font style is bold and size is 20. Now I'm making that whatever you are adding, what are the string you are adding to the operating system list, I'm applying the font size, same font size for 20. Then by using add method, I'm adding Windows XP, Windows 7, Solaris, and Macintosh for operating system list box. Similarly, I'm going for browser object, and I'm setting the font for the browser text also, like 20 size, and Arial and bold. That's the font style and family. So yeah, for browser list box also, we are adding three items: Internet Explorer, Firefox, and Opera. Now, among these three, the Internet Explorer is become 0 index, Firefox is becoming 1 index, Opera is becoming 2 index. So here in the browser, I'm trying to use one method called select, and here I'm giving the index number as 1. That means whenever we execute our program, by default, this Firefox will be selected because I'm writing a select method and the index number I'm giving 1. So I'll show you in the output. Then you need to add the list box of first one OS and browser to the applet window by using add method. Then we need to register the listeners because action event is generated when you double click any element. So for the first list box called OS, we need to go for registering by using add action listener of this. This implies that this action listener for this current object only. And for browser is also a list box, right? So we need to register the action listener for that particular control also. And here also we are writing add action listener of this. Now, whenever you double click any event, action event is generated in the list box, and the action listener need to be getting notified. And inside action listener, we have a method called action perform, and you can clearly see that action event has been handled by this method. And you are inside this, you are calling one method called repaint. Now, what does the repaint method does is the repaint method calls the paint method. And the paint method again, I am setting whatever message you are typing now that need to be of so and so font what I declared earlier, that should be applicable. Then here we are taking one array called integer array name with idx, that is index, and what the message what you have already taken I'm filling with current OS because already we are defined here somewhere the message that I'm using here, and I'm in current OS, and the idx is I want to get the index number what you have selected. So operating system dot get selected indexes, because operating system list control we have written multi-mode equal to true. So more than one element can be selected. So that is the reason I'm applying get selected indexes, and that you are storing in an array. Or already clearly mentioned here, array of integer. Then I'm taking a loop for I equal to 0, I less than idx dot length. Suppose in the first one, first operating system, 4 elements are there. Maybe I select only 3. So all 3 need to be printed. So I'm writing for I equal to 0, I less than idx dot length, because all the indexes whatever selected is stored in idx, which is nothing but an array. So I'm using that array dot length I plus plus, and in order to get that value, I need to apply one method called get item. Get item of idx of 0, first one, idx of 1, second one, idx of 2, like that we are going to get. And all should be concatenated with your message. And the message is finally printed on screen at 6,120 location by using drawstring method. Similarly, for second list control, you are getting current browser as it is, and it's also here we are going for get selected item, because here we are clearly mentioning that multiple mode selection is false, so only one item is selected. So at a time you get only one output. So here we are applying get selected item method, and that is concatenated here, and that is printed. So this output, operating system output is 6 by 120. The browser output is 6 by 140. So this is working for the paint method. So any point of time, the repaint method is going to call the paint method whenever the action event is generated. Because you're clearly mentioning the action performed, we are calling repaint. The repaint is going to call paint method, and complete logic will be working out. Now here we need to put a comment, and we write one tag called applet tag, which is part of HTML. And here there is a mandatory attribute called code, height and width. The code you need to write the class name itself, but don't put any .java class, because when you compile this program, you get a .class file, and the .class file should be read. Then width and height is up to you. This is an applet window size, and close the applet window. Now this particular tag will be read by the applet viewer at runtime. Okay, because this is not part of Java, we put in a comment, but at runtime that particular code is evaluated. So I saved my program and just go for a terminal and execute. So go to the respective folder where you have saved. So I saved in one of the subfolders, so I'm going for that. Now you compile Java C list.demo.java. Then applet viewer is one of the exe file. You need to use that list demo. Still you put .java because in the source code only we have applet tag. Now that will be red. Now here you can see the output. Just maximize it. Now here this is one list box, the other list box. Now here you can see we have gone for select of one. No, this is Internet Explorer is 0 index, Firefox is 1 index, Opera is 2 index. So if you see the program, we have written one method called select of here browser.select of 1. Okay, so here this is 1 index, so it is automatically selected. We have not clicked anything. Okay, and the number of elements what you can see is 4 size. Here also we have put 4 size, so all elements are visible, and whatever you have selected Firefox, you got here output automatically. Now when I change to Opera, double click it, you get Opera here. Again you want Firefox, double click it, Firefox. Then Internet Explorer, double click Internet Explorer. Now with the current operating system, when you go for this, just if you're not getting here, you just minimize and maximize. The window get refreshed. So you can see Windows XP. Then I go for some selection Windows 7. Just minimize and maximize. You got Windows 7. So I go for multiple selection. Just minimize and maximize. You're getting Windows 7 and Solaris. One more selection. So it need to get refreshed. So only 2 have been selected. So now 3 have been selected. So I'm double clicking here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 are selected. I just click here. If it is not going, just minimize and maximize so that it refreshes the window. Only 3 are selected. 1, 2, and 3. Suppose I go for Mac OS, I'm removing only in XP and this one. So just minimize and maximize. You can see that expense of this. So if I go for Opera here, double click, you're getting this one. So in this way, you can go for event handling for list control. And if you have 10 elements here, but you're writing the viewable area is only 4, you get a scroll bar here. So automatically you can scroll. So in this way, you need to work out with your list control. So I hope I've given some inputs on what is a list control in Java AWT, how to create it, what is the class, constructors, and methods used, and what is the event handling for that. So if you like this video, please subscribe, comment, and share it to your friends. Thank you.